Did you know that I've not always been Dr. Dave Hindmarsh? In a previous life, or what seems like a previous life, I was known as Major Dave Hindmarsh, or classically known as Doc, as every doctor seems to be known to in the Army. I served for 11 years in the Royal Army Medical Corps, left just coming up to 4 years ago now. But I used that knowledge to then help contribute to write an article with InnovAiT, so predominantly the Registrar Journal, about veterans' health. And I thought I'd just give you a run through, and I really want to focus on 3 key tips that I give to really enhance your consultation, and also not included, but I'm going to give you a bonus 2 things of not to do as well. So let's jump over to the article as well first. So, Veterans Health, I've got the lovely PDF all lined up for here. This goes through a brief background and it focuses really on sort of 3 main areas. So, mental health, okay, I will touch upon post-traumatic stress disorder because that's classically what people go to with sort of mental health in the military, but just bear in mind that's not the highest proportion of problems, and we go into more of that into the article. Then go predominantly onto alcohol misuse, op courage, which is sort of UK or sort of certainly limited in where you can get hold of it, but a really good new NHS service that's opened up, and also all the contact details there. You've got some physical health issues and sort of a couple of other specific things, so things like noise-induced hearing loss, which can be unfortunately very common from that way. And then we're looking at Op Restore, which looks at physical health issues with our military veterans. What I've tried to do is sort of mentally think about it in terms of what useful contacts and what do I need to know. Okay, so you'll see here is that there are lots of useful resources, whether that's just useful signposting to the Veterans Hub, the Royal British Legion, Veterans UK, and just goes through loads and loads of different things. It gives all the contact details there as part of it. So hopefully you can just sort of print this out and then sort of just make sure that you're happy with it and that you can sort of really utilise it from that way. If you've got an RCGP membership, so you don't have, then you will get access to this. Also, if you're trainees, they're looking for that sort of that awkward group to reflect upon, get them to read this and to reflect upon it as well. I think this would make a very, very good SCA case, and AKT questions are easy from that point of view, just to pull on these very specific knowledge. So hopefully it's all captured in there, get them to read it. So let's go on to these 3 cues, okay? So just bear in mind that veterans, like with anything else, it's sort of, just some useful either triggers or some lines that you can just elicit some really, really help you with your consultation. So number 1, pension point. Did you hit your pension point? Now this might seem a really odd question, okay? But during military service, there are key marks. Normally it's sort of in around numbers. So there's, I think off the top of my head, 3 years, 12 years, 20 years, where effectively you are rewarded from a financial perspective for hitting those marks, okay? The so what with that is that it gives a natural breaking point. So if, for example, you have someone who said, yeah, I left after 3 years service, you might want to follow up saying, oh, is that your pension point? And they go, oh, yeah, that's the sort of the minimal return of service that I had to give. Fine. Or they might have said, no, I pushed out to 12 years, and then it was like, I got a decent pension off the back of that and left, okay? The so what then is if they didn't, or if the answer's no, then it sort of gives you that open door to go like, why not? Because generally the financial reward is so great that you think, well, hang on a second, what happened to make you not hit that mark and leave earlier from that point? Okay, so that's tip number 1. Point number 2, okay, is medically discharged, or okay, were you ever medically discharged? So a large chunk of my work as an Army GP was basically occupational health in a nutshell. Are you fit to deploy? Wherever we're going, are you going to come to adverse harm? Okay, and from that point of view, the so what then is there are certain medical conditions that unfortunately are just incompatible with military service. Okay, and depending on how severe they are, it might lead to being discharged. Okay, now there are certain gradings within that, okay, and it's easy to think about it in terms of a traffic light. So red, really serious, terribly sorry, you got to go. Amber, yeah, we'll make some alterations, but then carry on. And then green, you're fine, absolutely fine. So it's worthwhile though, as a backup to have you been medically discharged, is if you've ever been medically downgraded, because it can just hint at these longer term medical conditions that you're not used to, or you're not aware of from that way. Okay. The last one is service items. Okay, and I play this the other way. So I will have deliberately, and I would suggest that if anyone has served, that just have a little flavour of military memorabilia in your consultation room. So I'm going to move my head. So all of this is military stuff. Okay, and what's fascinating is that my patients, as they walk into the room, so if you imagine my door is there, so when they walk in, the first thing that they see is that. Okay, I've got sort of going from top to bottom. I've got a beret from my UN tour when I was out in Mali. I've got a little poem that my medics wrote me, which was a little bit rude. A map of the area that we're serving in. I've got sort of the flash with the Red Cross on, and then I've got sort of a little poem there, or a little song that they wrote about me, which is very nice of them. And then I think, I can't remember what the last one is. Oh yeah, that's my photo. I'm going to put it up. It's a bit morbid. It's actually my death photo, which was probably the nicest photo I've got of me. The idea being that we had to go through, and if you're going to die, what photo are we going to give to the press? Okay, heaven forbid. So from that point of view, it gives them something to go, oh, Doc, were you in the army? And I was like, yes, I was. I served for 11 years. I left because of family reasons, and here I am. I served out in Catterick, which is only a couple of miles away from Eaglescliffe. So it just gives that breaking down those barriers from that way. Okay, for those more observant, you think, what the heck is that on top of it? It's a lizard. Ask any military person what a lizard is, and unfortunately I was Lizard of the Week for more than one period of time, so I got nominated to take the lizard home with me. Anyway, I also wear my veteran's pin badge on my uniform, so when I'm sort of got my Eaglescliffe fleece on, as it then gives another visual cue for it as well. Okay, so finally, to wrap things up, 2 things not to say, okay, when you're conversing and it's clear that they're a veteran, okay? 1, never, ever, ever say, oh, I almost served, or I almost ... okay? At the very worst, or the very best thing that they're going to do is that you'll get a nonchalant, all right, or just something like that. It can spark quite a lot of anger within veterans of the almost served brigade, to the point where it's a point of mockery amongst certain veteran groups. So if you're thinking about it, or if you almost did sign up, you didn't. Just be quiet about it and do not mention it. Point number 2, okay? Do not ask, unless it's pertinent to the history, i.e. you're talking about PTSD and they're talking about a particularly nasty event, do not ask if they've killed someone. Just don't ask it. Unless it's pertinent to the consultation. If you're doing this, sort of the whole purpose of these cues is just to sort of break down the barriers and give you some hints and tips to go, do not ask about it. It's a bit insensitive. The likelihood that they have is low, because if you sort of like with any fighting force, there is a lot of people, say like myself, who weren't on the front line. But regardless, just don't do it. It's going to fall down really badly. Okay, so other things to think about. Hope you go and read that article and make a great tutorial. Give it something for your registrars to read. Dr. Tara George, Bedside Reading, has just done a podcast on PTSD. Really good book about that. And so go and have a listen to that as well. And then the RCGP have just updated their Veterans e-learning package. So go and have a look at that as well. Dr. Dave Hindmarsh, former Royal Army Medical Corps. Have a fantastic day.